Hey everybody, Techie101 here, and welcome back to BAN-KAST. Hope everybody had a fantastic Merry Christmas. I'm recording this today on Boxing Day, so if you're in Canada, there you go. This will be Bleach, 1,000-Year Blood War Arc, Episode 38. We're covering, titled Free End. Free End. It's a, okay, let's see what Kubo's trying to go with here. Okay, so, like, the idea is that maybe Jugo and Bazz-B were free at one point, but then they weren't, but then they were again, and there's like actual restrictions, but then like metaphorical chains like restricting their freedom, and the only way to end that is to die, which is what happens with Bazz-B at the end of this episode. So there you go. I think that's the deeper meaning of this episode title right here. Now it's friend. It's friend, but you know, end is in friend. You know, there you go. Yeah, okay, that's how that works. There was another one where Kubo did that before too. I can't remember exactly what it was. But oh no, it was believe, and the word lie was in believe. So I think one of the chapter titles in the Fullbringer arc, like involving Tsukishima, was like, you can't spell believe without lie. So there you go, right? All right. So most of this episode, I mean, we do have a fight in the present between Bazz-B and Yhwach, and that fight is pretty cool. But we really get most of the flashback in this episode. Like we cut away, like it's not like the battle is the main focus and the flashback is the side thing. It is flipped here. All right. So we'll cut away and we'll see Bazz-B and Yhwach fighting at the Silburn at the Varvelt. And we'll have Bazz-B rank up his burner finger techniques. So he'll use burner finger 2. That doesn't kill Yhwach, so he'll go burner finger 3. That doesn't kill Yhwach, so he'll go burner finger 4. And then just so on and so forth. And in between each of those big giant attacks, we get the flashback. So the flashback is the majority of it. So we start off at some random point, like around 1,000 years ago in the world of the living. In Europe? Like I know it's in Europe. That one at least guaranteed, okay? I want to say Germany, although Germany didn't really exist at this point. This would have been more Holy Roman Empire kind of times. Maybe it's more north, you know, in like Scandinavia kind of areas, like maybe Denmark or so. But we see a castle, and outside the castle, someone is hunting for a rabbit, although they miss initially, and this is, of course, Jugram Yhwach in his younger years. He is unable to manifest a holy bow, and he is a Quincy, although he's just no real natural talent for it. However, somebody that does have a lot of natural talent is this guy right here. We have Bazz-B, and Bazz-B, his real name is Bazzard Black. And he is the son of a nobleman that was living in that castle. So this is like their fiefdom or their like kingdom where they were living, and the castle is like the ruler of the whole area. And so Bazz-B is just kind of like going outside the castle. He has this cool like gladiator gear on with the cool stylized bee with like the arrow coming out of it. Even at a young age, he was able to manifest his holy bow in the shape of a crossbow, which I imagine is fairly difficult. There's really no functional reason to make it a crossbow. It's not like it has a mechanism that you have to pull the trigger and anything. It's more of just like Bazz-B's natural talent. And it's like, oh, everybody else is making a normal bow with their reishi. I'm gonna make a crossbow. It's cool. And so that's what he did there. So Bazz-B announces himself, and Jugo also announces himself too. But he doesn't call himself Jugo. He actually hates that name. He calls himself I am Jugram. And Jugram Yhwach. And yeah, he looks rather somber, which given his backstory, yeah, that makes a lot of sense there. Jugram did not have it easy growing up, so this isn't even like a standard story of like, oh, Bazz-B is the rich kid living in the castle with his family, and Jugram is living like in the village and he's living in poverty. I mean, his family is poor, but like that's not even close to the big problem here. I mean, he doesn't have his parents. We don't know what happened to his parents. I guess they just died. And he lives with his uncle, who is horribly abusive to him, and a lot of other horrible things. Do not worry, Jugram's uncle is going to die pretty soon, so that's great. That's a fantastic thing. But yeah, he had it very rough, and you can even see it in the anime here. You can see the bruises on his arm, so you can see where this is going. Yeah, we cut back to the fight happening at Silburn, where Bazz-B tries to attack Yhwach. Yhwach takes out his sword and kind of uses his cloak to kind of like bash Bazz-B in the side of the head to kind of stun him for a minute. And he moves back, and they're just kind of facing each other down. Jugram mentions, oh yeah, your injuries, they were not caused by the enemy. That must have been from His Majesty's holy selection, the Aswalen. It seems you were not chosen. So the fascinating thing is, first of all, in terms of injuries, he doesn't really seem to be all that banged up. That mark on his forehead where he's bleeding, that was from Hashwolf's attack just now, where he smacked him in the head with the pommel of his sword. But other than that, like, Bazz-B seems to be going pretty all right. He seems to have healed up fairly well. It was mentioned that Bazz-B and Giselle and Latato, they are sort of like the most talented Quincy's in the Sternritter. They're, well, I would say, like, in the case with Bazz-B, he's over 1,000 years old, but, like, overall, like, biologically, he's really not that old, right? Like, he's only, like, in his 20s or 30s or whatever. So they have, like, a lot of latent experience and potential, I suppose, and that's kind of what Kubo said of, like, oh, that was the reason why not only were they able to resist the Aswalen and not die, they were also able to keep their script. So they're able to, like, because it's not like exactly Yhwach inscribes the letter into their souls and he's giving them the power directly from himself. I mean, he kind of is. It's more implied like he's helping awakening their latent abilities, so that's why he's kind of still able to do it, although sometimes Yhwach is able to just rip the power right out of the Quincy's, and in the case with Bazz-B, he didn't. Bazz-B's not able to go into his Voltstern if nothing else. In this episode, we don't see that, but he's still able to use the heat in his burner finger techniques, so we see that there. But yeah, Bazz-B brings up, like, yeah, dude, what the hell, huh? Everyone below who had undergone Aswalen died. I mean, except for Askin. Askin was the one that managed to get away from that. He was kind of promoted to the upper ranks. I think he was promoted right before that happened, though. I think he was just like, yeah, Askin, you get promoted. You're now part of the elite guard. Everybody else dies. All right? So, yeah, apparently Bazz-B and the rest of the Sternritter did not know about this. They did not know that Yhwach could just, like, rip the power right out of them. I'm curious about this as well, because I don't know, like, Yhwach does not seem to be a rather trustworthy fellow, right? I don't know. Like, if you're joining up in this dude's army, and Bazz-B apparently, I guess the fact they haven't aged is because they were living in the shadow dimension for, like, the last 1,000 years, right? Like, that's the idea, like, the Shadow Bayreich or whatever it's called, and, like, that's, like, on the other side of the Soul Society, and that's the reason they're, like, in, like, the just as old as they were, like, 1,000 years ago. Right, okay, great. I don't know, there's a lot of, like, lore that we reference with Quincy's in this arc, involving, like, the various, like, stories of Yhwach and how he received his power and restores his power, like the 900 years kind of thing. So there's a lot of lore there. I just feel like, you know, at some point being a Sternritter, especially if you're not even, like, the elite guard, if you're just, like, a soldat, you should know your life is expendable. You're like a damn stormtrooper in this army. Now, granted, Bazz-B was not a soldat. He was a member of the Sternritter, so the Star Knights, so maybe he thought, like, well, I have special status. I don't know. I still wouldn't trust Yhwach as far as I could throw him with that shit, because you know at any moment, like, oh, okay, this guy that just can hand out abilities by inscribing stuff on our souls, I don't know about this. He feels like he could just rip that power away whenever he wants to power himself up. But anyway, yeah, Bazz-B's pretty pissed about this here. So they're all dead, and Bazz-B's like, you knew all along this would happen. And he's like, well, yeah, kind of, I did. Why are you asking? By the way, Hashwolf, from later what we're going to see, depending on how they change things from the manga, his life is also kind of completely expendable, which we're going to learn a little bit more about where the position of Hashwolf is in the Sternritter, why he has the position of B, why is he, like, the right-hand man of Yhwach. We're going to learn about that a little bit later. But, you know, he kind of tries to play like, hey, man, we're friends, right? We're bros, you know, we go way back, right? And, you know, Hashwolf just kind of gives him the stare of melancholy and stoicism of just like, we may have been friends, Bazz-B, but I still have to do what I have to do. All right, so here's a little kicker. You know, I was actually thinking about this a lot with Hashwolf's character in this episode. So we get the most character development from Hashwolf in this flashback, you know, with his past, and we learn a lot about him. We'll get a little bit of characterization. Beyond this flashback, though, how much do we really learn about Hashwolf throughout this arc? I don't know. Is calling Hashwolf a shallow character fair? I don't want to make some big bombastic claim like Hashwolf sucks, because I'm not really sure yet. I haven't really sat down and really considered all of the options and everything. I'm not talking about anything involving like light novels or expanded universe or anything of that nature. I'm just talking like the material that we get with the manga, and granted the material we get with the anime is a little bit more, you know, in depth than the manga, but like, yeah, is that fair? I don't know, because like we didn't really know much about the guy, and he doesn't really seem to exhibit much of a personality. There was that one scene where he kind of goes back to his room, and there's that like Quincy that's a woman that's blonde that has like the black eyes and kind of like hangs out there as like Yhwach's, like not Yhwach's, like Hashwolf's like aide or something like that. And that scene's not even in the anime. They actually took that one out. We don't even see her. I know she shows up later in the light novel, and she kind of saves some of the other Quincy's, like the Bambis and stuff like that. But there was a moment there where kind of you can indicate a little bit of that. But up until now, Hashwolf's character is, he's very, very stoic. He's very serious. He's Yhwach's right-hand man. He wants to make sure His Majesty is safe. He hates Uryu. Doesn't trust him, and that's kind of it. That's really it. And this episode helps him a little bit there, but like kind of too little too late. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And we're still going to get some scenes with Hashwolf later when he fights Uryu. That's going to be, a lot of stuff's going to be added there, I am sure. So we're just going to have to wait and see with that. But I don't know. Let me know down below on how you feel about Hashwolf's character in terms of like the way that the character development happens throughout the arc and all that stuff, right? So, Bazz-B, on the other hand, Bazz-B's got way more personality. He's like, just call me Bazz, like back in the old days. Burner Finger 2! There is no hope for me and you. Okay, yeah. That was this dumb song that I sang back when I did the Bleach reviews in the olden times. Oh, look, they actually included it on his sword. That was cool. So there is a button that he has on the handle of his sword, right? And that was the button that Bazz-B gave to Jugo way back in the day in the forest, as like, you are now my subordinate. So he took that and embedded it into his blade. We see this way later, right as Hashwolf is actually about to die. In fact, I think it might be the very last scene we ever see Hashwolf ever seen or mentioned in the entire story. We see him die, and we see him like lose the grip on his sword, and we see the button on the blade. I mean, on the handle of the blade, right? So that's pretty cool. They included it there. They included the reference there. It seems we can no longer communicate, Bazz-B. I mean, Hashwolf, you haven't really been communicating in this relationship. Let's be honest here. Bazz-B showed up and just like, what the hell, Jugo? What's going on with everything? How come everybody died? What's up with Yhwach? Who are you? Why didn't you? You knew and you didn't tell us. That seems like kind of a dick thing to do. And he's just like, it seems we can no longer communicate. Yes, we can. You can sit down and have a cup of tea, and you can talk about old times, have a beer, and be like, why are you doing all this stuff, man? This doesn't seem cool. You used to be cool, man. All right. Well, anyway, time is almost up. After His Majesty falls asleep, your powers will exchange with his. This is actually a really interesting scene in the manga where we actually do see a shot of like the moon in the background, which is weird because they're at the Varvelt right now, and as far as we can tell, it's just a black expanse of like nothing outside of the Varvelt. But night and day, the cycle still exists here, I suppose. Every single time we saw the Soul Palace, it was always daytime. It never seemed to be nighttime, but I guess that cycle still exists. Yhwach, even after absorbing the powers of God, still needs to get his beauty sleep, and that whole exchange with, Hashwolf donning the mask of the ruler while Yhwach goes to be father of the Quincy, that whole switch, that still occurs. Now, I'll give Bazz-B some credit here because, yeah, Litato and Giselle and the other Bambis, Zombie Candace and Zombie Meninas and Zombie Bambi, went off to go fight Yhwach. And Bazz-B is actually kind of smart here where he's just like, if I wait, I'm not going to be able to kill Yhwach. He's too damn strong. He's absorbed God. But if I wait for the power to switch with Hashwolf and then kill Hashwolf, then I have effectively killed this almighty power, so therefore no big deal. I mean, I guess the way he couches it is that Hashwolf would be easier to kill than Yhwach while he's in that state. Bazz-B's also making a lot of assumptions, like that whole power switch thing would still occur at this point, which it does, so he's right on that. So it's like, all right, cool, that's how I'll finish you off, no problem. Okay, and so the battle resumes, and we cut back into the past again. Okay. So we continue their first meeting here. They kind of just talk here about how Bazz-B just kind of brags about how awesome he is and just like, well, you know, someone as frail as you can't possibly catch any rabbits. And then I love this expression of Hashwolf right here, just like kind of like, dude, who are you? Like, I'm out here just trying to hunt for a rabbit, just enjoying nature. You know, my home life isn't that great right now, and then you just come out of nowhere and just start bragging about how awesome you are. Like, what the hell? Like, come on, dude, that's not cool. So he's like, yeah, I'm a Quincy too, but I can't make a holy bow like you can. I'm weak. I suck. But, you know, Bazz-B right here, he is arrogant. He was an arrogant kid. But you know what? He does actually kind of try to speak up to Jugo here. Tries to give him kind of like a motivational speech. He's like, hey, man, that's not true. You're cool. I just met you, but, like, the reason why I can make the Reishi crossbow, I mean, not everybody could do this. I'm kind of a genius. You know, not mean to brag or anything like that, but I am pretty awesome. The fact that you can't make a bow, though, don't worry about it. You're not as weak as you say you are. You're awesome. So it's just like, hey, man, I'm great. And he's like, whatever, I guess I suck. No, man, you don't suck. You're awesome, dude. Come on. Tell you what, I'll be the boss, and you can be my subordinate, and I'll train you up, and everything will be great, right? Yeah, that's cool. Now, the thing about Bazz-B also is because he does live in this, like, castle, and we even see this later on when we get the cutaways in the episode. We get, like, Bazz-B's, like, backstory a little bit. It does mention that he wasn't really allowed to leave the castle very often. Like, he's probably not allowed to be out here right now, so he probably didn't have very many friends. And if he did have friends, they were probably like all like, oh yeah, Bazz-B, you're the son of the king or the son of the local lord, so of course we're gonna kind of like, you know, suck up to you, as it were, right? So Bazz-B hasn't really had like a lot of friends that are outside of that kind of social circle, so there is something going on with him as well. And Jugo also does not have a lot of friends. He says, can you not call me that, please? I don't like that name. And he's like, why not? He's like, well, I don't have parents, but I live with my uncle. He calls me that. I really, you know, he's like, he plays it very close to the vest with this, where he doesn't really want to talk about his home life very often because he's being horribly abused. But he's like, yeah, it doesn't matter what he calls me. Just leave me alone. I don't need to tell you anything. And then Bazz-B starts to notice the bruises, and he's like, if I don't catch a rabbit today, I'm going to get in trouble. And at that point, Bazz-B throws the rabbit at him. He just takes this rabbit that Bazz-B killed and just throws it right at Jugo's head. Just like, here, take this rabbit. He's like, ow, dude, why? He's like, hey, you said you need to catch a rabbit. I don't hunt for food. I just hunt because I'm awesome. I'm a genius. Anyway, here you go. Take this button. Take this button. You're my little brother. You're my subordinate from now on. And don't mind what the adults say to you. I'll teach you anything you don't understand, so don't worry about it. You know, you'll be able to make a holy bow, and in no time you'll be able to hunt those rabbits on your own. You'll be able to make a cool-ass reishi bow. Probably not as cool as mine, but like it'll be still pretty badass. All right? Become the strongest Quincy. See, there you go. That is motivation. All right? Yeah, a little bit of ego going on there with Bazz-B, but he's like, hey, man, don't put yourself down. It'll be okay. It's also very possible Bazz-B could have put 2 and 2 together with the bruises all over Jugram's arm, and he was just like, oh, I see where this is. Okay. No, man, it's okay. You don't have to think you're inferior. You're awesome. I come back here every day, and we'll hang out, and we'll hunt, and I'll train you, and that's what we'll do. Okay. So we do have, we don't see his face, but we do have Hashwolf's uncle showing up here, and he is a monstrous human being, and the voice and the things that, like, he calls in the manga, I think it's like, oh, my dear sweet Jugo, but here he uses like kawaii to refer to Hashwolf, so like you can see where this is going. Do not worry, he dies in a house fire like pretty damn soon. In fact, I have a headcanon that either Hashwolf killed him directly when the whole village was being torched or the whole forest was being torched, or at the very least, he was trapped in the fire and was asking for Jugram to help him, and he just let him burn. He just let the son of a bitch die. So either way, he dies. Don't worry about it. It's like, oh my god, yeah, this is like a common like manipulation, like abusive tactic too. Like, you're nothing without me. You can't make it out there in the world without me being there. Right, dear Jugo? Yeah, he's gonna die. Cutting back to the present, they still begin their little conversation. I mean, they're fighting while talking, you know, it's typical anime stuff. He's like, hey, why did the name of the castle change? When Varveld? What's a Varveld? Isn't this Silburn? It's always been Silburn, right? Yeah, dude. Can we not fight here? Because Yhwach Baha is going to be pretty damn pissed. Like, I have no idea what the other fights or what the other Sternritters are doing right now, but I heard a giant explosion earlier, like a trumpet going off. So, you know, we really can't blow up this entire castle. I mean, Yhwach could fix it, but he's going to be mighty pissed, right? So now we go Burner Finger 3 from Bazz-B, where he just impales his 3 fingers on the ground, and that basically just makes, like, he literally turns the floor into lava, so that's kind of neat. And then Hashwald has to kind of, like, block that attack. He takes out the crossbow, goes to fire a shot. And then we get a brief flashback where we just see Bazz-B in front of the burning Reishi fire, which, by the way, I thought the whole idea of the blue fire is that when Reishi material that is being burned, like that's like super dense, like when the sands of Huecamundo were burning, they were blue, but this is the world of living, so I don't know if that makes much sense. But anyway, so this is something that's added in here where we see the actual destruction of Bazz-B's castle as Yhwach's leaked right back in the day. The Light Empire invades and murders all of the castle guards, the royal guards, the army, and everything. And we see the old school. They're not Sternritters yet. We see the lady with the gun. We see her later in the episode. This is what she looks like. She's a new character in the anime. She's not in the manga. In the manga, all we get is Zydritz and Hubert, and there's another dude, the big guy with a scar on his forehead. But this lady with the gun is brand new, with the like the blue tips to her hair. Yeah, like that's all added in. We saw her earlier when Yhwach Baha was meeting with Ichibei Hyosubi back at the Silbird in, like, the last core, right? So they're just walking through this castle and just slaughtering Bazz-B's family. I'm assuming this was, and I know it's kind of dark to see it in this perspective here. Let me see if I can up that a little bit here just to make it a little bit more easier to see, because I have to keep the filter over this here for the sake of copyright stuff. But let me see what I can do here. Yeah, right there. So I mean, it's kind of hard to see even now, but her head is gone. But I guess that was Bazz-B's mom that got shot through the window right there. Bazz-B doesn't actually. I was kind of waiting for like Bazz-B to be like, "Mom, no!" But yeah, he doesn't actually say anything. So I'm assuming that was his mom. So Yhwach just kind of rolls through every surrounding region and kingdom and little like lordship or whatever, and just murders everybody that doesn't ally with him, and just wants the leaked Reich to like own this entire region. In the manga, they mention it as like he's conquered all of the northern lands. Where does this take place? We're going to get all into that later. Oh, my God. Oh, yeah, and then Bazz-B lands on the corpse of his mom to kind of, like, cushion his fall. His mom is headless, by the way, at this point. But he gets up and looks at her and just like, oh, no! And then he kind of hides, and he sees the members of Yhwach's group. And you see the symbol there on this guy's chest. And once again, you can't really see it too well. Let me up the opacity here. You can see the symbol is not the Sternritter 5-pointed star. It's like a 3-pointed star at this point. Just the Y because of Yhwach. So that's kind of the idea there. But, yeah, they're walking through the castle. Everything's on fire. We also see Zydritz, who was kind of like the Hashwolf at this point. Zydritz is kind of Yhwach's right-hand man. They will all die by Yamamoto's flames. That is how they all die. And Bazz-B is just kind of hiding behind a rock as he sees Yhwach walk through. Oh, that's a cool shot of Bazz-B there. And you see, by the way, that Yhwach has the Almighty active at this point. So Bazz-B hiding behind a rock, it seems kind of like Yhwach should definitely know that Bazz-B's there right now. I guess he just doesn't give a shit. He's like, oh, whatever, there's one survivor, who cares? I don't, whatever. He walks by him and just walks out into the forest, and Bazz-B is just traumatized for life. It is like, well, my whole family's dead. So the next day, also something not shown in the manga, the next day, Jugo shows up, and he's just like, hey, man, so, Crazy last night, huh? Crazy flames. Yeah, the whole forest burned down. My uncle died. You know, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. It's like, oh, that's sad. Oh, no, it really isn't. Don't worry. It's fine. I'm picturing the scene where his uncle is just like, Jugo, help me, please. It hurts. It burns. And he just kind of solemnly stares at his uncle and just walks away. So this was 6 months after they met. They go through the ruins of the castle, and they kind of just, like, loot the place. They take all of anything valuable to kind of live off of, all of the rings and jewelry and everything. Hashwalth finds his sword. I guess it's the same sword he uses now in the ruins of that castle, and begins to train his swordsmanship here. Uncle was burned to death. It was, yeah, so tragic. Anyway, let's get out of here. Let's move on. He's like, is that so? It's so tragic. Okay. So we see the burning forest there. The whole region has been obliterated. We learn a little bit about how Bazz-B has heard about Yhwach, how he has been alive for like 200 years or something like that. Yeah, so, yeah, like right here. He's a monster that's lived for 200 years. He's the progenitor of all Quincy's, and he's taken over all the northern lands with his inexplicable power. Okay, so let's go back a bit here, and let's talk about Yhwach, because I got a lot of stuff to say about Yhwach here. Okay, so... And this is a thing that just, like, clearly Kubo does not focus on, like, timelines as much as other series. And that's okay, I suppose. It's just a personal preference. I love it when a timeline makes perfect sense in a story. That's why I like, you know, with One Piece, the timeline is, like, very specific in terms of, like, how many years ago something happened. So, Yhwach is the son of the Soul King, correct? He's the child of the Soul King. And earlier on in another episode, we saw the Soul King back when, at Anais, back when he had his limbs, and he was the commander of the cosmos, and we see that, like, astral space where he was in. And we also saw Yhwach there as a child, and just kind of existing in that, like, astral hot tub in, like, just the water, right? This was back when the Soul King had his limbs, so this would have been, like over 1 million years ago. Like, this was a long time ago, because Kirio Hikefune mentions the history of the Soul Society is nearly 1 million years. Okay? So, at some point, Yhwach goes to the world of the living and is reincarnated as that baby that people, like, pour their Ryatsu into the baby, and then the baby, like, gives them back, like, part of their limbs and, like, fills the void inside of their souls and stuff like that. And so Yhwach was lauded as a miracle baby. Considering Bazz-B said 200 years ago, I'm assuming that's when that happened. I'm assuming Yhwach and the miracle baby thing happened 200 years before this. This is around 1,000 years ago. We don't know the exact date. So I'm, what, like 800 AD is when Yhwach came to the world of the living, but the Soul King was, like, killed a long time ago. Look, I'm going to narrow this down to simple standards here, okay? If the Soul King was ripped apart like 1 million years ago and those dimensions were created, Hueco Mundo and the world of the living and the Soul Society, that's where all of that kind of began. And then we don't know about anything happening for like 999,000 years. And then about 1,000 years ago is when stuff happened with Yhwach, and it was also around 1,000 years ago that the Gotei 13 was first formed. The Gotei 13 did not exist for the vast majority of the existence of the Soul Society, right? So I guess, was anything of note going on between the time the Soul King was ripped apart and thrown into that crystal and the 3 realms were created, and then like 999,000 years go by, and then this stuff is happening now? Like, okay, and then another 1,000 years go by, and that's the present storyline of Bleach with, like, Ichigo and the captains and, you know, Byakuya and everything like that. So, I know Soul Reapers live longer, and I know Yhwach is, like, a miracle child that's, like, the child of the Soul King, but, like there's so much time that we are just, like nothing happened in this space of time. And then all of a sudden, Yhwach ended up in the world of the living, like, I don't know, like, you know, 1,000, 1,200 years ago, something like that. And then this stuff happened. And then he conquered. They mention he's conquering every region. We'll get to that moment later, because that's actually a scene in this episode. But, like, I just want to bring that up because that just bugs me that we're just like what's going on with the time scale here? Okay. So anyway, it's just Hashwalth and Bazz-B kind of on the road together, and this is where they become real close friends, and it's just like, we've decided, like, we are going to kill Yhwach. I need you for this, Hashwolf. You know, you and I together, we're going to take our revenge. I will teach you how to make a bow and an arrow. We're going to find Yhwach someday. We're going to train up. We're going to kill that son of a bitch, and we're going to take our revenge. All right, so this is the scene right here. Okay, so this is Zydritz. Zydritz, the dude with the eye patch that gets killed by Yamamoto later. He is the right-hand man of Yhwach at this time. And so Yhwach is like, we will now create a new combat unit. And Zydritz is like, excuse me. By the way, Zydritz has a full name. We know his name is Johann Zydritz. And Hubert's full name later on is Hubert Alexander Kreisch. So there we go. We know their names. Okay, so anyway, Johann Zydritz is like, there are no more places the leaked Reich is worth our control, Your Majesty. You know, we've conquered all of the lands. Okay, once again, back up here. What does that mean? You've conquered all of Northern Europe? You've conquered Scandinavia? You've conquered all of Europe? Did Yhwach literally control the entire world of the living? Did he control, like, East Asia? And, like, did he travel across the Atlantic to conquer the New World? Like, does he control Australia? Like, what does that mean? There are no more places the League Reich can control. You know, I was actually thinking about this, and I did come to a conclusion. I actually did come to a conclusion. So we learn later in Burn the Witch that there is a western branch of the Soul Society, right? And that's like where London is right now. So I wonder if they conquered the northern lands of Europe, but they couldn't advance any further south into, like, what would be, like, the Iberian Peninsula, like where Spain is, or, like, they couldn't advance any further south because the Soul Society had control over those regions as the West branch. And then there's also, like, you know, the Eastern branch, which is the branch that we know in, like, Asia, okay? So that's where, like, the Soul Society is. So trying to advance into, but we're talking about the world of the living. We're not talking about, you know, the Soul, but that is their territory. So maybe it's like, oh, if we go any further, you know, south into Europe, we're going to piss off the Western branch, and then the dragons, and then the witches are going to get involved, and then, you know, Wingbind is going to fight us or whatever. We want to deal with that. And if we go any further, you know, down the Silk Road path or whatever, down, like, you know, into China and then eventually Japan or whatever, then the Soul Society is going to get pissed, the Eastern branch, and they're going to attack us, and we don't want to deal with that. So maybe Yhwach decided, like, yeah, eventually if we want to conquer, we have to advance into this extra-dimensional realm. We have to go to the Soul Society. We have to conquer that place in order to expand. That's the only thing we can do. And I guess there is also a southern and northern branch of the Soul Society that controls the planet Earth. I guess the northern branch doesn't really care about Yhwach, or maybe Yhwach wiped him out. And then the southern branch is like Australia or South America or whatever. I don't know. That's the only explanation I can come up with, because it seems to be that, like, yes, I have conquered all of Scandinavia. The only thing left for me to conquer is now this extra-dimensional realm called the Soul Society. It's like, what about the rest of the Earth? It's like, okay. It's like, that's not worth it. Sir, we could cross the Atlantic. We could conquer the New World. I don't worry about that. I don't care about that. Let's just go to the Soul Society. I'm like, all right. It's just like, hey, you know what? You actually might have had some, like, hey, you know, there's the natives that live over there in the New World. We're not going to conquer them. We're not assholes. You know, we're just going to conquer the Soul Society. Like, there you go. All right. So, yeah, I'm not really sure what this means by you've conquered everything. But he's like, we will conquer the Soul Society next. To defeat them, we need a new military force, and that is going to be the Star Knights or the Sternritters. So 5 years go by. And Bazz-B and Hashwolf are training every single day to get stronger. Bazz-B can now make 2 crossbows. And he just pummels to death a boar in the forest. He just, like, rapid fire, just like, no, just takes down this boar. And it's like, day and night, we're training. I'm still a genius. But Jugo still lacks the talents of a Quincy. So even after 5 years of training and Bazz-B trying his best to, like, you know, oh, this is how you form a bow, it's just very abundantly clear Hashwolf is incapable of doing that. Like, he just cannot make a holy bow. So instead, he's focusing more on his swordsmanship, right? And this is where Bazz-B kind of starts thinking, like, well, a couple of things. He mentions that a Quincy like him is born every few decades. However, a long time ago, these Quincies that were born without any natural talent were, like, annihilated, were, like, wiped out. And he hadn't heard about someone being born in a very long time. They would be considered defective Quincies and be killed at a very young age. That's very grim. They've become an ancient legend, and he didn't even know that, like, they still existed, but I guess that's Hashwolf is what the conclusion he draws there. So he also is, I mean, like, Jugo is still his friend, But Bazz-B is thinking very rationally about this, and he's realizing that, like, wait a minute, I don't think Hashwolf is going to be much help here fighting against Yhwach. Like the more that they're training together, it's kind of like, yeah, I don't think he's going to be a help because he just cannot summon a Quincy bow. He can't fight like a Quincy, so I don't think he's going to be any help to me. But he also does aid him in the sense that, you know, Bazz-B wakes up on an early morning in the middle of the winter, and he comes out and he sees Hashwolf training in the middle of like 4 a.m. at like dawn to dusk. He is training with his sword, trying to make up for his lack of Quincy talent. And Bazz-B kind of feels like, I don't even know, less inspired by this or motivated and more like pity about it, because that seems to be the way he's kind of talking about it. Like, I couldn't leave him behind. It doesn't seem to be like, wow, you know, Jugo's not giving up. He's training harder and harder every single day. I'm going to train harder and harder too. Maybe it's that, but it seems more like, he's trying so hard, but he just doesn't have the talent for it. I feel bad, but I can't. He's my friend. I just can't leave him alone. I can't just like leave him here, you know, and go off on my own and just train solo. I can't do solo leveling. I gotta stick around with Jugo here, and so that's what they do. So they're training, and then they find out that one day in a nearby village, Yhwach's band is arriving. So they're like, oh my god, it's go time. This is the moment. We're going to go down there. We're going to find him. We're going to shove an arrow through his head, and we're going to call it a day. So we have Hubert here, as well as some other members of the Yhwach. And they're like, yeah, hey, this is we are Yhwach's military police. We have here to issue an edict from His Majesty that a new combat unit called the Sternritter is to be formed. And this guy plants the big flag, and we see the new symbol of the Sternritter with the Quincy 5-pointed star there. And he's like, it is an honorable order of knights established for the invasion of the Soul Society. So I guess all these people know about the Soul Society. These are just people living in a random village. I guess they're all Quincy's? Like, are they? Like, I don't know. You tell me. That's the thing. It's just like, I don't know where we're at right now or what time period this is or what we're really doing. But, like, yeah, I guess they all know about the Soul Society. Otherwise, that would be very confusing. Your Majesty, Yhwach has issued an edict. We are invading heaven! Like, imagine back in the day, the local king is just like, the king has sent out word. We are invading heaven. Everybody that wants to invade heaven, join us in this battle. It'll be like, what the hell are they talking about? Is the king off his rocker? It's just like, nope, that's what we're doing. We have a portal to heaven. We're going to go in there. We're going to beat them up, and we're going to take over heaven. It's just like, okay, yeah, what's the pay like? How do you get paid for this, right? Those with great ambition to fight for the Quincy, you know, we'll join this order. Okay, so Jugo is like, oh, hey, Baz, that's great. Your strength, you're strong. You're way stronger than me. You can join up with this organization, and you will have an opportunity to kill Yhwach. And then, like, Bazz-B's like, oh, yeah, let's do it. Let's go, Jugo. Let's do this together. We're going to beat him up. All right, so he goes up to Hubert at first, and he's like, hey, dude, I want to join the Star Army. Yeah, loyal subject. I want to fight under Yhwach. That'd be great. Great dude. And he's like, well, who are you? Like, children? Like, who are you? He's like, I'm Bazz-B, and this is Jugo. I was like, okay. By the way, the people around here do recognize Bazz-B. They're like, oh, that's the son of the late lord of this region. So they're like, oh, what is he doing? We don't want him to die. And then Hubert just kind of leaves. He just like, okay, yeah, tell you what. Well, this is just kind of announcing the thing. Like, well, you can go to there's going to be a tournament later. There'll be an anime-style tournament that we're going to do off-screen to prove your worth as a Sternritter. But I wouldn't get my hopes up because someone as mediocre as you won't pass through this door. I see Zydrit's back there as well. Now, this would be the smart thing to do at this point would be to just, like, hang on for a moment and just, like, bite your tongue, Bazz-B, and just wait. And then eventually go, because, like, whatever selection ceremony they had for the Sternritter, Yhwach would probably have been present for that. Like, he's not there right now. So, Bazz-B, though, we all know he has a short temper. He's literally, his power is fire and heat. So he's just like, oh no, screw this. I'm gonna kill him right now. I was fired up for today. We're doing this. So he takes out his bow and he fires an arrow right in front of Hubert's horse. That causes it to reel back. He's like, come and fight me, Mr. Military Officer. If you win, you got to give me your position. Let's just make this simple. I kill you, I get to be a lieutenant or whatever, right? And so Hubert is like, okay, well, he's a rather sadistic fellow as well. So he's just like, all right, I'm just going to kill this kid. And Bazz-B is like, oh, okay. He calls him a monkey. And he's just like, oh, okay. The military officer was killed by a monkey. That's what your friends are going to deliver back to Yhwach Baja. So, like, yeah, this is great. I'm going to piss off Yhwach, get him to come out here, and I'm going to kill him. What do you think, random guy with a mustache back there? I don't know what's going on. Is my outfit period accurate? I do not know. Did they have belts with metal clasps back 1000 AD? I don't know. Did they have collared button-down shirts back then? I don't know what time period we're in right now. Okay. Oh, man. Hey, look, I care a lot about history. It's just, whenever I watch a movie and it's just like, that's periodly inaccurate, like, that just bugs me. But whatever. Anyway, I understand. It's a nitpick. Okay, so Hubert charges at Bazz-B, and all of a sudden it's just, boom, they got hit by the gravity. So they get slammed into the ground here, and then Yhwach arrives, making this whole process way simpler. I feel like maybe Kubo might have had, like, you know, if this, like, time was not an issue and we could just expand more about this, you know, maybe there would have been more to this flashback. Like, maybe there really would have been, like, the Sternritter selection ceremony, and maybe we would have seen kind of like a tournament with Bazz-B and Hashwolf entering that tournament, and then, you know, Yhwach is, like, presiding over it and be like, yes, and we see some other early members of the Sternritters, like, and seeing what they could really do, and, like, seeing how, like, they all joined together, like, which ones joined back in the day and stuff like that. Because, like, Bazz-B and Hashwolf joined, like, 1,000 years ago. We know, like, Asnote joined way later because Yhwach found Asnote in, like, a hospital hooked up to, like modern day life support equipment, right? So, like, there obviously is different moments where they were recruited, but Bazz-B was back in the day, yeah. So I'm sure there was some other ones that were joined back then. Not really sure when the Bambis joined. Like, when did Driscoll join? You know, when did Lloyd and Royd join? I think, once again, I think Lloyd and Royd were shown to be born in a hospital, like a modern hospital. So that was in a modern day. So Hubert is unaffected by the gravity, so he's just like, oh, I am so sorry, Lord Yhwach, I shouldn't have let a private duel with a foolish child, you know, like I let that get ahead of me, or get that the best of me. And Yuha's like, nah, it's cool, I just came here to pick something up. And the man who will become my right hand. Now, obviously, Bazz-B is like, oh, I'm awesome. You know, I am really talented as a Quincy. So Yuha's coming over here to look for his right-hand man. Well, don't worry, Yhwach. I'm right here. I'm going to get in your good graces. I'm going to be your right-hand man, and then I'm going to stab you in your sleep. I'm going to go all in with this, right? The person you're looking for is me over here. I just got to stand up. I just got to get up. And to his credit, he is able to get up over Yuha's spiritual pressure. He is able to, like, fight and resist that a little bit to kind of get on his knees. However, it's not enough, because when he looks up, I love this shot, by the way. When he looks up, he's trying his hardest. He's exerting every fiber of his being to try to just even, like, get up and to begin to crawl. So he gets up and just, like, he's fueled by his rage at the death of his family. And then you just see Hashwolf standing there, like, not even affected by this. Like, he is completely immune to the pressure. And you know that, like, Yhwach is probably exerting it too, and that's how he figured out that, like, no, Hashwolf is the one, right? I already know your name. You don't need to say it. Jugram Hashwolf, my other half. Okay. And then we get the cutaways. First cutaway, Bazard Black. Born into the Black family, okay, a noble ruling household of a certain region, Baz grew up with limited freedom within a castle. From a young age, he showed exceptional skill, such as creating spirit bows, brimming with talent as a Quincy. However, after meeting Yhwach, the castle was burned down, and Baz devoted himself to honing his power. Upon learning about the establishment of the Sternritter, he sought out Yhwach but was discarded, deemed unworthy of acknowledgement. Feeling betrayed, Baz turned his back on the Sternritter and their ideals, seeking revenge against Yhwach. His script is H. So, I mean, eventually he does join the Sternritter, so I don't know if that's like a translation issue, but, you know, he is immediately rebuked, but he does eventually come back and he joins the Sternritter. And then we have the next cutaway, which is Hashwolf. A boy who grew up in a forest alongside his uncle, living under oppressive conditions. Unlike most Quincy's, he lacked talent as a hunter and can only use a standard bow and arrow to survive. However, his encounter with Bazz-B Black set the course of his life. 6 months after meeting him, Yhwach burned the forest, and Jugram dedicated himself to strengthening his abilities. While the Sternritter was established, Jugram met Yhwach after a long search and was welcomed as his closest confidant. Serving as the Grand Master of the Sternritter, Jugram became a symbol of loyalty and trust, acting as the right-hand man of Yhwach. All right, so that's like just a quick little, not really anything new that we didn't know already, but like a little bit just on the brief, abridged backstories of both of these characters, right? So the idea is that Hashwalth is the other half of Yhwach, and they have similar abilities. And he mentions like only a Sternritter every few hundred years is born with this kind of talent or this unique ability, and doesn't really exhibit typical Quincy skill or talent. Now, Yhwach had the power to hand out his spiritual pressure to others and then absorb it back into himself. Hashwalth is not even capable of this. The other Sternritter are like, they're completely stunned because, you know, Yhwach doesn't tell them anything. He doesn't tell them about, like, you know, the origin of his powers or anything like that. So they're all stunned like, what, a child? That is going to be the right-hand man of Yhwach? What's going on? So we just have Bazz-B's perspective here. Like, we should have become confidants together and kill Yhwach, but if it couldn't have been you, it certainly should have been me, and then I would have been the one to taken it. Yeah, so this is the thing, like, right here, where Bazz-B is like, okay, we both should have done this, but come on now, Yhwach. I mean, come on now, Hashwalth. Obviously, if it was anybody, if it was between you or me, it's obviously got to be me, because I'm the one that has all the talent, right? But it just being you, it doesn't make any sense. Why would it be you, Jugo? And Bazz-B looks at him with a level of animosity here of just like, hey, what the hell? What's going on here? Is there something you're not telling me? Why were you chosen and not me? This is my revenge, you know? And so he's kind of giving him the death glare, and this has to be really, like, hurt, like, Jugo. It really does, because, like, this is his friend he's lived with for, like, 5 years, and they've trained together, like, every day, and now that he was chosen, not Bazz, and, like, wasn't the whole idea to, like, kill Yhwach? Like, to get into his good graces and kill him? So why are you being upset when that is happening? It's like, because it wasn't me. It wasn't him. It's like, I wanted to be the one to do it. I didn't want it to be you, and I'm a little jealous now, right? Yhwach's like, oh, bring a carriage. We're going to bring this one back to the castle. And Jugo is even like, hey, I think you've made a mistake, sir, your majesty. I don't have any skill as a Quincy. Hubert is like, what are you saying? You saying that Yhwach doesn't have he was wrong? He's never wrong. He's Yhwach. He has multiple eyes. He sees all, you know, is like, he doesn't make mistakes. He's like, no, you don't understand. Like, I can't even make a bow. I have no talent as a Quincy. I literally cannot be good for anything. But Bazz-B over there, he can make 2 crossbows out of reishi. You should pick him. And then he'd be more suitable. And even Bazz-B is like, oh, come on, I don't need your charity, Hashwalth. And then Yhwach gets off his horse. He walks over and he's like, oh, no, I know you are the one. You still do not know what your power is. Of course you cannot make a holy bow. Like me, you are a Quincy with the ability to share power. Now, I was able to bring that power back into myself, but you are incapable of even that. And that's when Bazz-B kind of connects the dots of like, wait a minute, special Quincy, born every few decades, hasn't appeared in the last 200 years, Yhwach Baha, and like all of the puzzle pieces connect together there, and like, oh no, okay, so this is making sense now. Like, they're the same, or they're very similar. They're the same kind of unique Quincy's that are born with this power. First Yhwach, and now Hashwalth. And so we never, by the way, see Hashwalth ever develop like a holy bow in the series. Like, he is incapable of doing that. So he doesn't ever develop the powers similar to Yhwach. That's just kind of what he has. But he is able to still get a script, and he is able to use like the friend shield and everything, the balance, which is an extremely powerful ability. And Yhwach is like, I can cultivate the power I grant and then take it back into myself, but you can't do that. But he does mention what Hashwalth is capable of doing, is that he's able to share his own Ryatsu with others to increase, like basically give them a buff to increase their talent and their like rate of reishi development and stuff like that. So their spiritual power will be increased. So just by being around Hashwalth for the last 5 years, Bazz-B has gotten stronger and stronger. You should feel your power increasing every day, and that's not because of your own talent. Did you think that was your own power? You're not special. It was Hashwalth making you stronger. Now, Bazz-B clearly does does have innate talent. He was able to make the crossbows and stuff back when he was a kid, and that was clearly a high-level Quincy ability that nobody else was able to do, and he didn't even meet Hashwolf yet. So that's more of just Yhwach throwing shade, of just like, oh, you think you're hot shit? No, you're not. It's Hashwolf that was making you stronger. You should thank him. He's the one that made you who you are. So now it's kind of like the twist where Bazz-B viewed Hashwolf as kind of the one that was a little bit of a dead weight and kind of like helpless, but now it's like flipped, and now Bazz-B is feeling that for the first time in his life, probably like, wait a minute, I wasn't a genius. Hashwolf was the one making me strong. I'm not super skilled. Oh no. And then like that is kind of destroying his ego in a big way. And Jugo doesn't even really know what to do at this point. He's just kind of staring on him, just like, I don't even know how to respond to this here. Because I think also the dots are connecting in Hashwolf's mind too, of just like what this means and what this is, and just being in the presence of Yhwach. Well, okay, well no, there's actually two ways to look at this. There's one way to look at this like in a spiritual sense of like Hashwolf knows just inherently like Yhwach and him are like the same just by the vibes that they're giving off. But there's another way that's way darker, in that he was abused his entire life by his uncle, and he's just like, I need you, Hashwolf. I'm not complete without you. And it's that cycle. It's not like anything with like Reiatsu or spiritual pressure. It's just psychological trauma, and that's the reason that Hashwolf goes with Yhwach, which is even, that is so much grim and dark interpretation of it. But that could, in fact, be the case there, right? And so Yhwach is just like, I need you. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I know I have to go with him then. And then Bazz-B just erupts in a flurry of Reiatsu, manages to get up and fire his bow. Die, Yhwach, you son of a bitch! And then, oh, that's cool. The like, what? The warp, fisheye lens sort of thing that we do in anime every now and then. And Hashwolf grabs the arrow and stops it from killing Yhwach, and he's just like, no, I can't allow you to do that. And then we cut back to the present where the fight is still resuming here, where Hashwolf also equally grabs the arrow here. So it's like a parallel. That's like what Bazz-B is remembering, and it's happening now in the present too. And the past repeats itself, all that kind of stuff, right? So Bazz-B gets knocked back. He's bleeding pretty bad. The blood animation in this battle is really on point too. It comes out of him like later on when he gets slashed by Hashwolf. He just starts geysering blood like a fire hydrant, and it's so damn badass. So Bazz-B gets up, and Hashwolf's like, dude, Bazz-B, please stop. I haven't even brought out my power yet. I have this whole shield thing that's able to, like, reflect damage back on yourself. I haven't even used that yet. I'm using, like, 20% of my power, and I'm still kicking your ass. It's like, oh yeah, I'm here to kill you. I'm going to do it. I'm going to kill him, man. Burner Finger 4, which just makes a giant claymore out of flames, which is awesome. He makes a giant sword of flames. It's like, I told you to stop. I don't want you to destroy this castle. Bazzard Black. And so now Hashwolf is finally getting a little bit of, like, emotion that he's exhibiting now. He's actually calling Bazz-B by his full name. And so, of course, that attack doesn't work. He's able to dodge it. Do you want to avoid competing again? Are you afraid of losing to me, Hashwolf? Come on, man. Let's go. And so now we cut to one more flashback that's a little bit more into the future. 3 years after that exchange in the village, Bazz-B did end up eventually joining the Sternritter the proper way. We just kind of cut over that ceremony, like how you join the Sternritters. It just, he was accepted later on. I guess a lot of other people just kind of forgot about him. Hubert kind of remembers him. Hashwolf is now the commander of the Sternritter. Bazz-B's thinking, like, was he always the commander of the Sternritter, or was that something that was only recent? Not really sure. I wasn't here, so I don't know. He tries to constantly fight Hashwolf to kind of prove that, like, I'm stronger than you. I'm better than you. I'm going to fight you. I'm going to prove it. And Hashwolf every single time is like, no, I'm not fighting you. He just turns him down and just walks away. He just ignores him. He's like, I'm not fighting you no matter how many times you provoke me. It's not going to happen because fighting between the Sternritters is against the rules. We have Hubert there, and Hubert is like, is that guy from back then? The dude that, like tried to attack Yhwach? Maybe I should go deal with him myself. And Hashwolf is like, no, I'll be watching you. You can't fight between the Sternritters. And Hubert's like, yeah, but Yhwach's not going to find out. The dude that literally has access to, like, every future won't be able to find out. But, like, it doesn't matter because Hashwolf says, no, you don't understand. I'm watching you. So if you try to fight him, if you lay a finger on Bazz-B's head or any Sternritter, I'm going to kill you. So that's kind of the implication here. And Hubert is actually outranked by Hashwolf. He's the vice captain, and Hashwolf is the captain. So we just kind of see the army of the Sternritter that Yhwach amassed back then. This is the army that's going to invade the Soul Society. So I'm assuming at this point the Royal Guard, you know, like now that it consists of Gerard and Lige and Pernita and Askin. Back then it was Johann Zydritz and Hubert Alexander Kraish, and then random blonde girl, and then random big guy with a scar. Yeah, those were the members, and then Hashwolf was like his commander back then as well. So this was like the Royal Guard of the Sternritter back then. But other than like who was the letter F back in the day? Who was the letter, you know, like Z before Giselle or anything like that? We don't find anything about that in this episode, but we see a little bit of the backstory of the Sternritter and how they kind of formed their initial invasion. Then they were wiped out by Yamamoto, and then they had to retreat into the Shadow Realm, and then 1,000 years go by, and then here we are. Yeah. So he tries to use Burner Finger 4, and this is the cool scene where Hashwolf just slices off his damn arm. How do you handle a giant arm that's forging a fire blade? You just cut off the arm. I cut him in half. So he cuts the arm off. Oh, there it is right there. Oh, my God. Look how brutal that is. Oh, Hashwolf, just one clean cut, just swish, slices off Bazz-B's arm. Like, ah, you know, okay. But don't worry, Bazz-B's burner fingers work with his left arm as well. He's ambidextrous. He'll be all right. So the blood is just geysering. He's like, dude, please, just give this up, Bazz-B. Bazzard Black, please. It's not worth it. And then Bazz-B's like, screw you, man. I still got 5 more fingers. Let's rock and roll. Burning full fingers. And this just makes like a flame tornado. It just makes a giant flame typhoon that he just blasts at Hashwolf. Maybe if he had all 10 fingers, he could do like a Kamehameha type deal. But unfortunately, he's only got the one hand to work with, okay? So he uses that giant flame typhoon. Hashwolf just kind of walks through it or avoids it. It seems very simple to avoid. He just moves back past it. So maybe uses Blutvina to like block the attack. Hashwolf had to deal with Yamamoto's heat from back in the Soul Society, so like I feel like this is nothing compared to that. Hashwolf dealt with like the temperature of like what was that, like 150 million degrees Celsius or something was like Yamamoto's Bankai, and he didn't immediately burst into ash, so he probably could just like walk right through Bazz-B's flame tornado. I don't think it was that big of a deal. He slices down Bazz-B. That's kind of the killing blow here. Oh man. Looks like he just got hit by a water balloon full of Kool-Aid. He's like, I can still get him. I'm gonna still beat him up. You gotta get over here, you son of a bitch. Get over here, Hashwolf. Dude, Hashwolf has like 1 mark on his face from the initial attack, and that's like it. He didn't get any blood on him, dude. Oh man, I'm losing a lot of blood. Does the human body even have this much blood? So he grabs Hashwolf's collar. His hands are still kind of on fire, so they're like burning him a little bit. And the last words he says, I've lost, Jugo. You know, it's completely against my wishes. I thought losing to you would make me feel even more dissatisfied, but it's the opposite of that. It went against his wishes. So Bazz-B actually feels kind of complete after being defeated by Hashwolf so handily. And then he drops to the floor, and he dies. And Hashwolf walks away as he's remembering, you know, the first time they met. Like, from day on, you're my little brother, and I'm going to train you. And then, you know, Bazz-B's just on the ground, just dead. Don't mind what the adults say to you, man. I'll teach you things you don't understand. And then we just have the sheathing of the blade, which I don't think we see the button here. It's interesting. I thought for sure the last shot of this episode would have been Hashwolf sheathing the sword, and we like right here would have been a perfect time for him to like lift his hand and see the button embedded in the handle. But we do not see that. It just cuts immediately to the title, Friend, episode 38. So sad. So that's the end of it. That's what we got. Next episode of Bleach is going to be a 2-parter. It's going to be airing this Saturday. We're going to get episode 39 and episode 40. This is going to be the finale of Core 3. Pretty epic thing. I'm really excited for that. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I'll probably just break it up into 2 episodes like I did with the end of Core 2, because I think Core 2 also ended with 2 episodes at the same time. So this will be episode 39 coming up next, The Visible Answer. So looking forward to that. Let me know how you felt about this, about all of the backstory with the Sternritter. I kind of wished personally we would have learned more about it in this episode. We get a little bit more, but nothing that I really wanted. Like, we got more of, like, Bazz-B's castle being destroyed. That was cool, but I really wanted to learn more about, like, you know, Yhwach's domain, and then that initial plan, and what are some of the other Sternritters back then, and giving us some names. And like, who were the Sternritters, like the letters back in the day? Like, I would have liked to learn a little bit more about that. But then again, this episode, those chapters were not about the Sternritter as an organization. They were about Bazz-B and Jugo's backstory and how they are friends. And now is the callous death of Bazz-B laying right there on the floor of the Varvelt as Jugo walks up the stairs. But let me know how you feel about Hashwolf's character, because I've always found him to be a rather bland part of the arc that we don't know really much about. And like, after this, it's pretty much just like, I don't like you, Uryu, and we're going to fight so I can kill you. And that's basically it. And then eventually Yhwach rips out the power from Hashwolf, betrays his right-hand man, and there's really no big deal about that given. And then Hashwolf just kind of dies. And that's kind of it. So hope more stuff is done with Hashwolf, definitely, to learn more about his character and his personality and stuff. But anyway, that's it. That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to check out my main channel, Teching 101. Subscribe to BAN-KAST here. Check out Spotify, Google Play, where the podcast is also at. Thanks for watching, everybody. And moving on to the season finale of Bleach, I suppose. And then after this, we're going to go to Core 4 next year, I guess, and that'll be all she wrote. That'll be the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, although we might get more after that, because we got the Hell arc, and then we got other additional stuff with the light novels, so we probably are going to get more beyond just Core 4. And Core 4 is going to have to incorporate a lot of stuff from the light novel anyway, because like I said, we have now, like, since, you know, we covered everything with Shunsui and Bazz-B and Mayori's fights now, all that's taken care of. We are now at, like, chapter 650. Of Bleach. We might even be higher than that. I think, actually, hold on. Let me double check something really quick. No, 654, because it's 654, because that was when we have the shot with Izuru. We haven't gotten that yet, but that was when Liu fell to the Soul Society, and we had Izuru showing up with 654. And there's only 686 chapters of Bleach. That's 30 chapters. There's going to be more than 30 chapters covered in Core 4. Like, there has to be at the rate we're moving here, right? So there's got to be more stuff added. Can't wait to see that, and can't wait for the finale. All right, everybody. Teching signing out.